Okay, hi Zeke.
Hi,
Thank you so much for being here on Master Shot. I really appreciate it.
thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. So I thought we'd start out by letting people know what you're doing right now. Start present day, and then we'll do a throwback to the beginning of your filmmaking career.
Sure. So right now I am production director for Oatly in North America.
And what does that mean? What does production director mean? Because a lot of our students at DAFT probably don't know what that entails. Like, what do you do?
Every place or production company or agency world, I mean, they all kind of have different definitions, right? But in the case of Oatly, I'm essentially like the executive producer, head of production for Oatly North America. And it really entails a lot of dealing with production budgets, managing departments, managing the productions when we have productions, making sure everything goes smoothly, hiring the right crew, just kind of putting the pieces together.
So that's what you're doing now. Let's throw back to the early days. Where did you grow up? When did you get interested in filmmaking? Let's start there.
Let's see. I grew up in Dearborn, Michigan, and I got into video and film. Well, I got interested in junior high. I remember, I don't know what it was, but I just remember like I think I was like maybe in 8th grade, which was junior high for me. But I just remember coming home one day and I was like, I wanna like work in like the video world. And I don't know. I don't know what, like I said, I don't know what inspired me. Maybe I saw a movie or something and it just clicked. But and at the junior high I went to, we didn't have anything like that. But so I had to wait until I got into high school, and the high school was Dearborn High. And at the time it had a really good video program that was actually only open, I think technically it was really for sophomores and up. But I don't know, somehow I was able to like, sneak in and
You talk your way in there or something, or
exactly. Yeah. I think probably my enthusiasm just, sold the teacher to let me through the door. So yeah, high school, and really it was all my high school career, like 9th grade all the way through, until I graduated, I was really immersed in the video program.
was that the infamous Russ Gibbs who ran that program?
Yes.
A lot of DAFT teachers, who've been around a while, had known about him. He was very instrumental in DAFT and sending students to our festival, and a lot came out of Dearborn at that time.
Yeah. It was, you're right, and it was a very productive. Yeah, it was a very productive period for Dearborn, and yeah, I mean, no doubt Russ really had a big influence on that.
And now, were your parents supportive of this interest? How did they take it?
They were, and it's interesting because I mean, my parents, were, like kind of conservative, and it's one of those things where it's like, oh, are they going to want me to just, be a doctor or whatever? But no, they really, I think they saw from an early age, even when I was like a little kid, that I was very creative, and I mean, give credit to them. I mean, they recognized that, and they supported me.
Were you involved in DAFT at all? Did you submit things to the festival? What was your experience with DAFT along the way?
I can't remember when the first time I submitted. It may have been maybe like my sophomore year, but again, I was in Russ's program at Dearborn High, and we were always submitting things to festivals around the country. And DAFT, of course, was one of the big ones. And yeah, I'm sure for at least 3 years, like sophomore, junior, and senior year, I had submitted, and I know I had won. I won some of those, some of those awards. I can't recall the.
So for those who don't know what DAFT is, it's Digital Arts, Film, and Television. Probably people who are listening audio only might not realize that, but it's an organization that's been around since 1969. So helping teachers and students with media literacy and things like that. So Anne has run the longest running student film festival, the Michigan Student Film Festival. So you were one of the students who benefited from the programs. Did you do Focal Point as well?
I did, yeah. I did 2 focal points, and they were incredible experience. I remember at the time for both of them, you could choose like video or work with film. And I mean, I chose film just because I'd never had worked with film, and all I was doing in high school was videos. And so I think the film program, both times at Focal Point, I mean, they were just incredible. It was like amazing to really be so tactile with the film, and like you're literally splicing it and taping it and, you know, shooting on the little reels, and it was
all
amazing.
in 1 week too.
All in 1 week, yeah.
Yeah, making a film in 1 week. That was the days when they didn't have 48-hour film festivals and things like that. You know? So it was like the only thing that was that fast in creating something so amazing.
It was awesome. And I mean, like, it wasn't even just the film part of it as well. I mean, it was the camaraderie of meeting other filmmakers and other, you know, just making friends out of that. It was cool.
So what was the trajectory after high school, and did you go to college, and what did you choose? Like, a lot of students don't really know whether they should go into film or go into something else, and then going back to film. What did you do?
So yeah, outside of high school, so my college career kind of I broke it up into like 2 parts. But right out of high school, I went to Henry Ford. And I mean, I knew I wanted to be in the film industry in some capacity. And when I went to Henry Ford, I was like, I think I should probably take some theater, because not that I wanted to be an actor, but as a director, as a filmmaker, I was like, I should probably learn what the actor's process is, learn, you know, how to communicate, learn their language, make some friends with some actors, which every filmmaker needs. And so I did theater at Henry Ford for a couple of years, which was, you know, an amazing experience. I learned so much, and I think it really helped me. And it helped me in ways also, in some ways, as sort of being a public speaker. Like, you know, you got to go on stage, you have to do your thing. And as a director later on in life, you have to stand up in front of people and pitch ideas or take people through your concepts and sell ideas. And I think it all really just, you know, it kind of came full circle.
And so what were your first jobs out of college? What sorts of jobs did you take? Did you just take the first thing that came along? Or how did that come about?
I actually did take the first thing that came along, and it was because Detroit's PBS reached out, and I think it's probably to DAFT's credit, because you know, being one of the recipients, Detroit's PBS somehow, you know, knew who I was, and so they reached out. They offered me like a position to basically segment produce for the show, and I took it up immediately. And it was great because this was like my first, and I'm right out of high school too. And this was like my first real professional, you know, industry job where you're given an assignment, you put your crew together, and you go on location, and you have to design a story. You have to capture a story, tell a story, and then take it into the edit, work with an editor, and, you know, create that narrative. And it, you know, these segments were, I don't know, maybe like 5-minute segments, but so it's not like you're making a half-hour show or anything like that. But it was great because of that purpose. Like, you're working against a time of 5 minutes or whatever it was, And yeah, you have to have a beginning, middle, and end, and it all has to flow. And it was a great learning process.
And where'd you go after that?
Where did I go? Oh, I started then at Donor Advertising in Southfield. So one of the things in this business is, when you meet people, other people know other people, and it kind of, it kind of helps you out that way. And so one of the executive producers at Detroit's PBS knew an executive producer at Donor. He was like, hey, you might like advertising. And he put me in touch, and I interviewed at Donor to become a producer. And yeah, they let me in the door, and I was there for the next six years.
Did you get to do some fun stuff, travel, do all that kind of stuff?
Yes, not right away at first, but yeah, eventually. Yeah, Donor was, and they're still around and still is a terrific ad agency here in Detroit. Yeah, it was, work your way up. I started out as like an associate producer, which is basically a junior producer, and just doing sort of the basic, just, grunt work. But, you rise up fast and you pick up all these skills. And the thing that I really loved about Donor is, it's an ad agency. So you're working on different things almost every single day, different clients, different types of commercials, radio spots, digital projects. And so it was, it's never boring. And just that sort of eclectic experience of, having your hand in so many different things. It was almost it was like my film school in many ways. You're on set, you're working with directors, and some of them were very big, successful, feature film directors. And you just, you're there, and you have to really be buttoned up. You have to really, just be detailed. And yeah, so it was great.
But you didn't stay in Michigan, did you? You moved out of Michigan for a while. Was that something you consciously decided to do, or just the job appeared and you felt like it was the next step in your career?
No, it was a conscious move. And, Donor was, in a way, it was almost like a detour to what I had sort of envisioned, my direction to be. And after 6 years at Donor, which again was amazing, I really came to the point where it's like, look, if I'm gonna actually sort of become a filmmaker myself, I need to actually move to LA. And so that's what I did. And knowing that, I also, because by that point I'm at Donor, I was a senior producer. Like, it was a very nice, comfortable, career. I could have stayed at Donor. And going out to LA, I knew I was going to start, here I am up here. I knew I was going to go right back down here. And I was fine with that. Like, I wanted that. And so, and that's what happened. So when I got out to LA, I immediately, I had some relationships that I already had, cultivated through Donor, working with production companies in Los Angeles. And so I called them up and I said, hey, I'm living out here now. I'll work as a PA. Just, let me help you guys out. And so they were very gracious, gave me a lot of opportunities, and that's how I sort of got into the production world.
All the filmmakers I know, myself, we all do our own individual projects. It's no matter where you're working, you still feel like you want to tell your own stories. You want to, kind of run your own production without a client, that sort of thing. And you've done that, and you've won a lot of awards for doing that. One of them, American Seoul, which is, you call it a vlog, right? It's a vlog.
It originally was a vlog. I've since turned it into just one full piece.
Okay, but it was a series when you first started. It was a series. What I want to do is play a piece of it, And then we'll come back and you can talk about it and where it came from, how you did it, all of those things. Because a lot of students now, they do their own projects all the
Yeah.
time and their own stories. So why don't we watch it and we'll go from there.
Okay. So not a lot is known about my origin. I was born in South Korea, not quite sure even when, and the police found me in an alley and brought me to an orphanage where I lived the first 3 years of my life. There are no records of my birth parents. There's no birth certificate, there's no official paperwork. Even my birth date is a best guess. I don't remember anything from the orphanage. Actually, I do remember one thing. It's a vague memory. I'm on the floor. It's dark, and a mouse or a rat nipped my finger. That's it. So just shy of my 3rd birthday, I get adopted through the Holt International Adoption Agency by a white American couple living in suburban Detroit. I fly into O'Hare International Airport in Chicago, where I meet my parents for the first time, or rather they meet me.
So tell me about that project. I love how you shot it, first of all. It's just in black and white, raw, and you're right there in the frame. So tell us about that.
That was done in 2014. I think, one of the things that I really enjoyed about freelancing and production, living in LA, was, you work super, super hard for, like 3-4 months, and then you might have like a month where, no jobs come in, or just, it's a break. And, in those downtimes, I learned those are my time, like, that's my time to do something. And maybe it's like, I don't have a ton of time, like I might have a month, or I might have less than a month, like a couple weeks or whatever. But like within that time, I have to do something and not make it overly complicated, where I can like execute it and, kind of have it in the can, so to speak. So I don't know what prompted me per se to like do like a vlog or a like a video on myself per se, but I know that, YouTube, which YouTube had been around obviously in 2014, but like if you think about YouTube today, 2014, it was relatively new. And the whole vlogging thing was actually relatively new at that point as well. And so I think part of that was definitely, an influence on like, let me do this in the form of a vlog. Let me make this really intimate, having the camera close. There's a saying with writers, write about what you know. And, for a vlog, it's like, look, I'm going to just talk about what I know, me. And not in a narcissistic way, or at least I hope it doesn't come off that way.
No, it doesn't.
But my experience as a Korean American adoptee growing up in predominantly a white community, and yeah, I think that was something where it kind of ticked all the boxes. It's like, look, I can shoot this in a relatively short amount of time. I don't need anyone. I don't need to hire a crew, and I can make it really personal. Something, a throwback again to Russ Gibb and Dearborn High. He said something that, always stuck with me, was make projects personal, whatever you do. And even in like your professional work, like if you can add that little personal flair to a project, it becomes that much more special. And I think I really took that to heart with this, where it's like, you know what, this is the time. Maybe this is where I make that personal project.
No, I think it's great. I really do. And I think it's something that students could do themselves as well. Kind of watch yours and go, okay, now what about my story? How do I tell my story? That sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
The other thing I wanted to show was the pandemic
Mm.
video you made through Donor, right?
Yes.
When did you make that one?
That was right. That was in March of 2020.
So did you come back to Detroit at that point? Is that
Yes.
you
So
got back to Donor?
I had actually come back to Detroit in 2018. I worked to work at Donor again. So I was, I came back to Donor in a different capacity this time. I was their director of content production, and so I was already there for a couple of years, and then of course the pandemic hit, and yeah, that was an interesting story. So, the pandemic was very fresh. Obviously, it was in March of 2020. I think this was technically before like the lockdown. I had driven around because I shoot photography as well, just for fun. And I was driving around Detroit when it was still pretty empty, and I was just taking photos of like the empty buildings, and some of the establishments were already putting up signs of just encouragement, like we're going to get through this, and blah blah blah. And so I had a small collection of these black and white photos. I like black and white, if you haven't noticed.
I got that feeling.
And I had a small collection of these black and white photos, and then a strategist at Donor, one of my colleagues and friends, he had approached me and said, "Hey, like this pandemic thing is like pretty serious. Like, I wonder if there's something we can do, like as a company, as Donor, some form of content. Can we create some form of content to put out?" And it just so happened I had these photos that I had just taken. And so we put our heads together, and we came up with this idea. And by the time and it didn't take us that long, but by the time we actually went out and shot it, or I actually shot it by myself, time had passed, like probably a week or so had passed, where now it was fully like lockdown. So we were already now working from home, separately, which obviously at that point was brand new to everyone. And so I went out, shot it in driving in my car, shooting out the window. The voiceover, she was another colleague at Donor.
Yeah, I read she recorded it in her closet or something.
She recorded it in her closet, for the
Wild.
sound muffling, for the dampening. One of the executive creative directors at Donor, he of course, wrote an amazing script to go with that. But yeah, I went out, shot it, and then I brought it back. I cut it, in my house. And so, yeah, it just all came together, and I think it's a beautiful piece.
Yeah, I want to show it. And if people are listening on a podcast, I'll put the link in the show notes so they can actually see it, because it's really amazing.
It feels unnatural to not be in motion. For the city built on four wheels to stand still. But these vacant streets, empty stadiums, are not signs of our retreat, but of our resolve. This is not us sitting out the fight. This is us winning it. Our fist doesn't need to move to have strength. If he were alive today, even Henry himself would have put it in park. So take this isolation as a sign of our togetherness, as we take care of ourselves and the ones close. Because although it's time for America's motor to stop, we're coming back with all 8 cylinders. Because here, we don't stop in the name of fear. Here, we stop in the name of love.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
you got a lot of Sunday Morning had you on. You got a lot of really great press over that one, didn't you?
Yeah, it was really yeah, it was really special. I think yeah, we did get a lot of press. I mean, MSNBC did a story on us, CBS Sunday Morning, CBS This Morning, you know, the papers, the San Francisco Chronicle. It even aired in South Africa. Like,
Really?
yeah, it was really special. And I think it's just, you know, it just had that unifying sentiment that, you know, everyone could relate to. Obviously, we were, you know, the world was going through this thing. We all, you know, felt it. So yeah.
Well, in the empty streets with just the person walking across, one person walking across the street, it just was amazing.
Thank
So,
you.
and it's black and white again, too.
Yeah.
Your signature.
I swear, I do other things that are in color, but
Yeah, I actually have the Simone Biles. What did you do for the Simone Biles?
so yeah, that was a fun job. So yeah, I directed that commercial with Simone Biles, and that was for Core Power, which is like a energy drink. It's one of the clients that Donor has, and I mean, I've been able and had the pleasure to work with Core Power, the clients, multiple times in the past. They're a great client, and so yeah, when the Simone Biles opportunity came up, it was you know, sort of this just natural fit. They wanted me to helm it, and so we went to Houston, or just outside of Houston, to where her gym is, and we filmed her.
Yeah, when you're a director for a project like that, what is the most important thing that you have to pay attention to and that you have to really be aware of in order to produce something like this successfully?
I don't, you know, there's a lot. I'm not going to lie, and I don't know if there's like one thing that, you know, is like the most important. Like, honestly, it's all important, and of course, you're not alone in it. You have your support team of, you know, your production people that, you know, are there to support you. But you know, in many ways, you are sort of the captain of the ship. You know, everyone looks to you for the answers, for not only like logistical answers necessarily, but also the creative answers. But at the same time, you're there as a collaborator, because it's not just the director, it's also the ad agency and the creatives, you know, who are also a part of it, as well as the client. So there's this balance that a commercial director, at least, needs to find. And sometimes it's tricky. Like, you know, sometimes if you're too outspoken as a commercial director, then people don't like you because you're too outspoken. And then the other people feel like they're not being heard. And on the flip side, if you're not outspoken enough, then people are scratching their heads and they're like, why do we hire this guy? He's not bringing any ideas to the table. You know, as a director, you definitely want to focus on the story, and, you know, the narrative of the you know, piece that you're doing. And when I say narrative or story, it's not even about like, you know, A, B, C, D. It's, you know, because a lot of commercials or a lot of ads don't necessarily have like a linear story that, you know, one can follow, but it's the narrative of what are you trying to communicate, or what is the emotion that, you know, you want the viewer to walk away with. You know, in this case, I think with the Simone Biles, there was a nice moment that we all found together, that she could do this run, which was, you know, part of her routine. And so that actually does give, at least, in, you know, might be stretching it a little bit, but it gives at least a little bit of a story where we see her prepping for the run, we see her run, and then we see her do the vault. And so, you know, there's a little bit of a story there, but also I think more importantly, you know, it's the narrative of the product also that you're selling. In this case, it's core power. And, you know, that really, as much as it's amazing to have Simone Biles in the commercial, the real star is the product, you know, for a commercial. And so you can't lose focus on how the product is being portrayed, how it's shown, the angles, the amount of time it's on screen, all that stuff. So a director has a lot to think about when going into a production.
Hey, why don't I play that one?
If you think I take my training seriously, you should see me recover. Work hard, recover harder with Core Power, the official protein drink of Team USA.
Okay, that gets you right at the start.
Yeah, it does.
But I did want to ask you a couple questions that maybe our students and teachers would want students to know, someone who's been in the field for a while. And one of the first questions is being Korean American affected you in this business at all? Has that had any pluses, minuses? Because we're really wanting to showcase people and, you know, have students see other people like them in the business, to know that they can do it. And so I was just wondering, has that affected your career path at all, or how you feel along the way?
I don't know if it's affected me, or at least I don't know if it has. Let me put it that way. I think, look, I mean, I'm proud that I'm Korean American. I'm proud of how I look, and I'm proud that, you know, I'm fortunate enough to work in a business that embraces diversity of all walks of life. And so I think it's incredibly important that we support that, and that we look for diversity, to find people's stories and to have them bring their own experiences in whatever capacity, whether it's I don't care if they're a PA or if they're a director, like having that sort of melting pot of different people's experiences, I think completely enrich the process, the production, and the people's lives that, you know, are a part of that.
Yeah, I've noticed a trend, especially in like PSAs and things that are related to products. There's one right now on TV a lot. If you can see her, you can be her. And it's like with TV shows, you know, they're showing, we have directors who are women, we have, you know, camera people. It seems to be something that people recognize as very important for young people as they're moving up the ranks.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, no doubt it is important. I think there's also, you know, there's a trend going on right now. Yeah. And, you know, I don't, you know, it's sometimes hard to see if some of the stuff that we're watching or that we're seeing, if it's really coming from a genuine place, mm-hmm. or if it's just, you know, these companies or these, you know, whatever products are just doing it because they know it's like, that's the trend. But again, I think it really comes down to, like, if we want that change, then we need to be the one to advocate for that change. And, you know, by advocating, we have to do it. We have to follow through. And it's not going to, you know, it doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It doesn't mean it's going to happen overnight. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I think at least there's a focus on that now, and it's being brought out into the mainstream. Again, whether it's, you know, companies just hopping on the bandwagon, but I think at least, you know, it's out there.
It's out there. Yeah. So what would you say is the most important thing? Last couple of questions. Most important. I always say that this is the last one, and then I ask another one. What's the most important thing for students to realize, especially when you're coming out of college or high school, in order to, you know, get your foot in the door in this business? What are the characteristics? What are the skills that, in your opinion, are probably up there at the top of the list?
There's a lot. These are the things that I observed myself. Some that I've observed from other people, and some that I've observed actually, like what I did wrong or what I did right. I think one important thing is you have to be a good listener. You have to listen, and you have to be willing to learn. It's an incredibly creative business. No one knows everything, and the business is ever evolving. It's always changing, and therefore, by that definition, no one is ever going to know all the answers because it's always moving. And so, to be a listener is incredibly important. I don't know. You have to be a listener and be a sponge and just, be willing to learn from other people.
Yeah. So if you were, let's say, in high school and you were the best in your class and you made the best things, when you get out there, you're not going to be the best out there anymore. So I really feel like sometimes, like what you did in California, you were top of your game out here, but when you went there, you were willing to start over almost.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what high school and college students kind of need to do, because there's so much good equipment around now. You can make fantastic things in school.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to be willing and get along with people.
Yeah. And I think, that goes hand in hand too with, having some humility in this business. We always see the sort of iconic imagery of a director or a producer, like, on set, and they're, giving a direction, or they're talking, or maybe yelling even. And that looks great for a photograph, but in reality, the directors that I have learned from, and I've learned from some great directors, they are all good listeners for one thing, but they all have a humility. They're all very grounded. And they realize it's not just them that make it all happen. You have a crew of 30, 40, 50 people behind you that are actually doing the work. So having that humility, I think, is a really, really important skill or characteristic.
So my last question, and it's the real last question, where is the industry going? Like, do students have to leave the state they're living in order, like, do you need to go to New York? Do you need to go to LA or Atlanta or something in order to work in this business with the pandemic? Has that changed? Because we're having our interview over Zoom.
Yes.
So what's your opinion on that? What do you think?
I think there's a lot of work in Michigan. Here's the thing too about the sort of film business and the film industry and creative industry is, and we've talked about it obviously on this podcast. I come from a very like a rooted advertising background, and I think I think advertising is overlooked sometimes, because when kids or people, they set their mind like, I want to be in the movie business. They think movies or TV. And even though we watch ads all the time, we don't realize, someone had to direct that ad. Someone filmed that ad or cut that ad or wrote it. And so Michigan has a really strong advertising community where you can pretty easily get involved and start, getting experience that way, almost like what I did, where I got into the ad agency, which really was a great experience. It was kind of like my film school. And then it opened doors, and it opened up my network to a wider palette. So Michigan, I think, does have some good opportunities. Now, I'm not going to discourage anyone from not going outside, like to a New York or an LA or Miami or Atlanta, because I think it's also incredibly important to have those lived experiences, meeting people and working with people and living with people from different walks of life, different backgrounds. It all really feeds and teaches someone who wants to be a creative or who is a creative and wants to be a filmmaker or a storyteller, it just really adds to that experience.
Well, I just want to thank you for doing this. This is awesome. We're
Thank
allowing
you.
teachers to take pieces of it or watch the whole thing. And I think you gave a lot of really great information and great advice for students who are up and coming. And thanks for your involvement in DAFT as well.
Oh, thank you. My pleasure.